Hello world, hello church, welcome to our Mosaik Moment number 4. In our first 3 Mosaik Moments, I introduced to you this historic God moment that we're experiencing here in Germany and other parts of Europe, where refugees and immigrants have been streaming into our churches, have been asking, even Muslims have been asking, who is this Jesus? How can we get to know him more? And it has changed the face of the church. It's certainly created a huge challenge for the church. The church has become an incubator for people of other religions, other worldviews, who are searching for the truth, who are searching for the true God. And the question that we've been asking ourselves is, what kind of a DNA does a church have to be that kind of incubator? The last 2 sessions, I explained to you the DNA factor that we call mono-multicultural, meaning that the church, strictly speaking, is not multicultural, but those who are the nationals, the monos, are actually called to open their hearts, to open their church doors to people of all other nations, even other religions, in other words, the multis, and integrate them and lead them to Christ, a mono-multicultural church. Today, we want to discuss with you the second DNA factor that is necessary for the church to be able to invite in people of different religions and different backgrounds in order to find Christ. And that DNA factor we call gospel-driven. I've asked a good friend of mine and fellow pastor, Jason Lim, to join us today. And I would like to just say, Jason, it's great to have you here. Great to spend these few minutes with you. You're a church planter here in Germany. You have actually a very multicultural background of your own. Tell us, Jason Lim, exactly who you are.
Well, first off, it's a privilege and an honor to be part of this. So as you've said, my biography is somewhat multicultural. My father's South Korean, my mother's German, but I grew up in Thailand and am now married to a German wife that was actually born and raised in Bangladesh.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. You were part of a student group that several years ago started a church here in Frankfurt, Germany, which experienced this invasion of immigrants and Muslims. And you went from that church then to plant your own church. Tell us a little about your church.
So we're a church plant in the northwest of Frankfurt, and it's probably easiest to understand our context by using the number 7. That's how I like to explain it. So we got more than 17,000 people living on about 1.7 square kilometers. So that's 10 times the density of Bangladesh. So that's a lot of people, and it's 70% of them come from a non-German background. And we are the first church since 17 years that is actually trying to reach these people through the gospel and through emphasizing church not as a building or an event, but broadening it as a way of thinking about church always being there from Monday till Sunday and sharing life with them. So we have a great emphasis on informal day-to-day experiences and encounters during just day-to-day life.
Now, I know from living in Frankfurt myself, your part of the city doesn't have a single restaurant. And that's actually symbolic because the people in your part of the city, they come from so many different backgrounds and they live in complete isolation. Explain for us, what does your church community look like? Who are the people that you're encountering?
It's a very diverse group. I mean, these 70% are just made up of all sorts of nations and religious backgrounds. So we have Muslims, but we have Jehovah's Witnesses, we have Shinto Buddhists, we have Hinduists, and it's just a very, very broad diversity.
And you're encountering all these people?
Yes, it's day-to-day encounters with all different sorts of backgrounds.
And these people are open to your church community?
Well, it differs obviously, but they are coming into our worship service, and that makes for a very exciting time.
Now, to make it a very exciting time, we're saying on this program that the church needs to be gospel driven. What does that mean in your case, to be gospel driven?
Well, if we just take the word gospel, just meaning good news, I think the important thing is that it's not news about what I've done, and it's not news about what I have to do, but it's news about what has been done in Jesus, in his death and resurrection. And so my life and all of life becomes a reaction to that. And that means that being driven by it, I forgive because so much more has been forgiven for me. I serve people sacrificially because, not sacrificially, by sacrificing myself because Jesus sacrificed himself for me. I love others because I was first loved. And so all life becomes a reaction to that. And so we try to preach people not this is what you have to do, but this is what Jesus has done for you. And so we try to paint them the beauty of the gospel and let that change everything in their life and have their life become an answer to that. So now I can have a basis of thankfulness on which I build everything else because I've just experienced what's been done to me and now I want to react to that.
It sounds to me like what you're saying is the church develops a particular atmosphere, maybe. It starts with the leadership and it permeates the entire church. It's an atmosphere in which people are not judged by how much they contribute to the church or whether they fit into anybody's expectations of culture, but instead everybody is viewed as loved in Christ, and that just creates then a sense of equality. That creates also a sense of freedom. Would you say that's the case?
Yes, I think the gospel, it crushes something on one level, but then it elevates on another level. So a great way that someone might summarize the gospel is by saying, in myself I am more sinful than I ever dared believe, but in Christ I am more loved than I ever dared to hope. Or someone else would say, grace humbles without degrading, but it elevates without inflating, because everything is built on something that's not what I did, but someone else did for me.
We want to really be honest here, and we want to say that we've learned this way of thinking and this gospel drivenness, even the statement you just made, in of myself I'm more sinful, etc., from guys like Tim Keller, right? I mean, they've had a huge impact on us over here in Germany, and no better place where things are summarized than in his book Center Church.
Brilliant, yeah.
And we just have to say it has, learning from these giants like Tim Keller, we've learned just a whole new way of doing church, if you will. Now, the question I want to ask you is, what difference does it make to the non-Christian? What difference does it make to the Muslim or any stranger, the atheist for that matter, when the church is thinking, every member in the church is thinking, in and of myself, I am more sinful than I ever dared to believe, but in Christ I am more loved than I ever dared to hope? How does that create a church atmosphere that the Muslim, the atheist, etc., can come in and can actually find Christ?
I think it just creates a very open community and a very loving community. Something that's driving me also is a quote by John Piper, who said, always be more amazed that you're saved than that they're not.
It's great.
And so to be humbled by that, to just constantly be aware that this is not something I've deserved or somehow earned, but this is something that's been freely given to me. And now I just, out of joy and thankfulness, want to share this with someone else. I don't see that person as, you first need to come up to this level.
Very good.
Because I was far from that level. And if I can even be saved, then I've got great news for you.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. The experience that we're having in our churches in Germany that are being gospel driven, in fact, is that anybody then comes into our church and immediately feels like, regardless of what religious background they have or what they're thinking or even what their morality is, they have a place.
Yeah.
They have a place because nobody's saying you have to reach a certain level before you can be part of this community. And everybody's saying, I am so focused on the fact that I am more sinful than I ever dared to believe. And I can confess that. And I can, in fact, make changes in my life because no matter if I confess it or not, in Christ I am more loved than I ever dared to hope. That the person who's come into the church community, the stranger, immediately feels like, okay, they're not watching me, they're watching themselves. And I have space and I have time here to search out for myself, who is this Jesus? And should he really play the role of Lord in my life? Gospel driven. It's an absolutely essential DNA factor if you want to be a church, like we're learning to be church, that is going to be open for God to send people of all nations and religious backgrounds into our church community. Jason, thanks so much for spending these minutes with us today. And I just want to say it's great to share with you again, and I look forward to seeing you in Mosaik Moment number 5.